Meantime, Shadow Health Secretary is with us now, Wes Streeting. Good morning.
Good morning.
Talk to me about why, first of all, your leader has pulled out of a speech at the Institute for Government today.
No idea. I didn't check before coming on because I thought it was such a trivial thing. But the idea that, as I've obviously done a couple of these interviews this morning, the idea that Keir has been avoiding scrutiny when he's been out all weekend in front of cameras celebrating those brilliant results we got in the local elections last week, it's whether or not he's done an event, his diary changed all the time, is kind of neither here nor there, really.
Wouldn't it have been a perfect opportunity for him to clear the air with journalists and everyone else that wanted to hear what happened in April of last year?
Well, he's been doing that all weekend. He's been doing it consistently since he was first asked questions about Durham. And let's just remember this central fact, which is the police have looked at this before. They found no case to answer. No action was taken. There's no reason to think this time round will be any different. But what it will show is the stark contrast between Boris Johnson, who was fined, Boris Johnson, who lied about there being any events whatsoever under his own roof, Boris Johnson, who said all of that, despite the fact we now know that officials were wheeling in suitcases full of booze into Number 10. There is no comparison whatsoever between perfectly legitimate campaigning activity, which Keir has never denied, and the actions of Boris Johnson and the people who work for him, which was rule-breaking, lying, completely unacceptable. And the fact that Boris Johnson is still there, I think, is remarkable and depressing. And if Conservative MPs, last time I was on your programme, I said Conservative MPs have got to do the right thing, hold Boris Johnson to account. Well, they've failed to do that. But maybe last week's results in the local election campaign and the loss of hundreds of Conservative councillors might concentrate their minds so that if Tory MPs aren't going to do the right thing for the right reasons, maybe they'll do the right thing out of self-preservation.
Meantime, back to what your boss was up to. He told us at the time and subsequently that it was a spontaneous curry. From this document that we've seen that was leaked by a whistleblower who was obviously very upset by him and the actions of the party, it wasn't a spontaneous curry. It was planned. I think we've got it. We were told that Angela Rayner was not there. She was there. And we were told for months that she wasn't there. She was there. She was quite obviously there. Her name was on the list. We were told that he returned to work afterwards. It looks from the briefing notes that would suggest otherwise. And we were told that 15 people were there. And one has to ask, why was that reasonably necessary? Well,
two things. One is it was a genuine cock-up, a genuine mistake to say that Angela Rayner wasn't there. But let's just look at this.
But her initials are there. Her initials are on the thing.
But it was a genuine mistake, Kate. And let's just bear in mind, there would be nothing to gain whatsoever for saying that Keir Starmer was at this event and Angela Rayner wasn't, not least because no rules were broken. This is perfectly legitimate. And as for this, I mean, one of the things I thought was remarkable, and, credit to the Mail's imagination, they've managed to turn a perfectly normal ops note for a visit to during an election into some kind of great revelation. What do they think people happen, that we go on visits and just wander around the town, in the hope we might just do something useful?
We were told it was spontaneous, the food. It's there, it's on the ops note. Takeaway from Spice Lounge. We were told he couldn't get food from anywhere else. He went to the hotel. There was food available at the hotel.
I am, breaking news. Keir Starmer has dinner. Keir Starmer needs to eat dinner. Of course they've arranged dinner, and I'm not surprised that it's there.
You told us that Angela Rayner wasn't there. All of this was planned. As with all things, it's never the cock-up, it's always the cover-up.
But hang on a second, Kate. Are we seriously saying that we believe that Keir Starmer and his team have planned an event and planned a meal in there which they knew to be breaking the rules? I think this is ridiculous. Keir Starmer is someone who practices what he preaches. He's honest. And it's perfectly reasonable to have a dinner. This is perfectly permissible within the rules. And I've got no doubt that after the dinner he went back to work, because anyone who's ever worked on an election campaign knows that you work late into the evening. And I know from working with Keir Starmer, he works late into the evening all the time.
Okay.
And the police will look to draw their conclusion again. But I don't think people out there in the country think that Keir Starmer is the kind of bloke who goes around breaking the rules and getting smashed on an election campaign, breaking the rules. This is why I just think this is all stretching the boundaries of credibility, and I'm frustrated because all this is about is trying to drag.
Let me get a word in edgeways. If it was permissible Why didn't he say? Why did he not agree? Why did he not tell us about all of this to start with, instead of coming up with some cock and bull story?
But I don't think that's a fair characterisation.
We were told that it was an impromptu,
I don't think that's fair.
an impromptu curry because he couldn't get food anywhere else. We know that that's not true. We were told that Angela Rayner was not there. We can see that wasn't true. So
but
what?
it was in the Angela Rayner case, it was a genuine mistake, and the Labour Party held its hands up and said, "Look, we're really sorry.
Why wasn't it corrected
we
straight
got
away
this
rather
wrong.
than months
we got this
later?"
wrong." Well, obviously someone didn't check at the time, and that was stupid. And the Labour Party apologised and held our hands up, and I think that's the right way to behave. And look, that is a stark contrast, by the way, with Boris Johnson, who lied regularly and repeatedly, denied there were any events in Number 10 whatsoever, any rule breaking whatsoever. And then we found out not only were rules broken under his own roof, he was there and he was breaking the rules. So look, the police are looking at this now. I don't think they'll draw any different conclusions to the one they did before, but they are looking at it. And I think in the end, Keir Starmer will be vindicated and people will end up looking very silly.
So when the Prime Minister was under investigation, Keir Starmer said that his position was untenable. This is when he was under investigation, not about when he was actually found himself in a position where he had broken the rules. He said, honesty and decency matter. After months of denials, the Prime Minister is now under criminal investigation, which Keir Starmer is, for breaking his own lockdown laws. He needs to do the decent thing and resign. That's what he said in a tweet, and that was in January of this year. So this was for being under investigation, not for actually breaking the rules.
Keir was absolutely right, and the reason why Boris Johnson should have resigned then was because even before, hang on a second, even before the police drew their conclusions and issued a fine, we already knew that Boris Johnson had lied to Parliament because we already knew that parties had taken place. So Boris Johnson had already been caught lying to Parliament,
but that's not
and
what he
under
said.
the ministerial
That's not
code.
What he said.
No, look, Keir was
under
just drawing
criminal investigation.
Yeah, he's drawing attention to the fact the Prime Minister's under criminal investigation.
Yeah.
But he was already calling for the resignation anyway because Boris
under
Johnson
criminal
had been
investigation.
lying.
Your leader's also under criminal investigation. Honesty and decency matter. So if it was good enough for the Prime Minister, it's good enough for him.
And the police have looked at Keir's case before, and I've no doubt that they will reach the same conclusion this time.
And he's under criminal investigation. Honesty and decency matter.
They do. Honesty and decency do matter, and I think they're qualities that Keir Starmer epitomises. I believe he's told the truth the way through. I believe he's followed the rules at all time, and I believe that when the police look at this again as they are, we'll cooperate fully. I think they're going to draw the same conclusion,
and that will
strengthen the contrast between
honesty
Keir Starmer
and decency matter.
and Boris
After
Johnson.
months of denials, the Prime Minister is now under criminal investigation.
You can't just keep on reading that same tweet and hope I'll give you a different answer. Look,
I can.
What are you saying? That having not broken the rules, Keir Starmer should resign, while the bloke in Number 10 who broke the rules, lied about it and was fined is still there? Come on.
He's saying that one rule for him and one rule for the Prime Minister.
No, he's absolutely not.
That's exactly what he's saying.
Kate, you've got to remember, back at the time, in January 2022, we already knew that Boris Johnson had been caught bang to rights lying to Parliament. We were already, on that basis, calling for Boris Johnson to go. So I don't accept that because the police are now looking at this again, having had weeks and weeks of the Conservatives and others calling for them to do so. I don't believe that Keir Starmer should be handing in his resignation because the police are looking at it. The police looked at it before. There's no reason to think they'll reach a different conclusion this time. What I do think is remarkable is that the leader who did break the rules, who did lie, who did mislead Parliament, who did pretend nothing was going on, who did take the people for fools, and who did allow his officials to wheel in suitcases full of booze, is still there.
Can you accept at least that this has not aged well?
No, I think it's a perfectly reasonable thing to say. I'll stand by every single word that Keir said back then.
OK. Let me put it this way, then. Given that Durham police are now re-investigating your leader, should they also be re-investigating what happened with Dominic Cummings?
Well, why not? But look, I'm not going to tell the police what to do in terms of operational policing decisions. I don't think it's appropriate for senior politicians.
Well, you are, because you're saying that they won't find a case rather than waiting to see what they say.
No, I'm saying what I think will happen. I'm not saying, police, you must not find there's a case to answer. I'm saying I have confidence on the basis of what I know and on the basis of the man that I know in Keir Starmer, his honesty, his decency and integrity. I think the police will reach the same conclusion they did last time. But as I've always said about the police, they need to pursue things without fear or favour, and I'm sure that's what they'll do, and I make no criticism for doing it.
What if he gets a fixed penalty notice?
I don't think he will. And I'm not even going to entertain the prospect. We've had weeks and weeks of the Tories slinging mud at Keir Starmer, hoping that people will just conclude that we're all the same. There's no point in changing Prime Ministers because the next one will be as bad as the current one. And that's just not true. And I'm not going to get into the game that the Tories are playing with their friends in the media of trying to smear a decent man and to pretend that Keir Starmer's behaviour is in any way comparable with Boris Johnson. Okay. And how Conservatives have the barefaced cheek to come out, you know, gloating and demanding resignations and throwing around accusations of hypocrisy at a decent man like Keir Starmer, I don't know. They should get their own house in order, if not for decency and honesty in public life, but for those hundreds of Conservative councillors who lost their seats because their Prime Minister's a liar. OK,
you're not going to answer this either, but I'm going to ask you.
Why ask then? Let's go to the one I will answer.
No, well, let's see if you will. You may, you know, you're always surprising me. Do you want to be next leader? We've got a list of all of the ones, all of the guys and women that might fancy it.
I'm sure that by the time there is a leadership election, I'll be too old and people will be looking to a new generation, because after 3 terms of Keir Starmer being the Prime Minister of our country, people will be looking to a new generation. So you don't fancy being Prime Minister or a leader of the opposition under any circumstances? I'm slogging my guts out to make sure that Keir Starmer's the next Prime Minister, and on the basis of the election results we got last week, a remarkable turnaround from where Labour was 2 years ago, I think we've got everything to play for at the next general election. And I think when people look at Keir Starmer, look at the values he holds, looks at the answers that we have to the country on things like the cost of living crisis, the 2 million people that we now know are cutting back on food, can't afford to eat, a Labour government will deliver the alternative our country needs, and that government will be led by Keir Starmer. OK, well, that's the topic that we're going on to next. It's great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks for joining us.